Okay, we're live, Bob, and your host again.
Okay,
Have a
fantastic.
great class.
All right. Welcome everyone to our live or retire abroad finances and costs. It's kind of part two. You can take this one first or the other one first, but we do a class on live or retire abroad. Is it right for you? And this one focuses more about finances and costs. So we'll give people a chance to join in the meeting, and then I'll go through a few introductory slides for you. Okay. So I see we have some people from that are joining us that have been on Get Set Up courses before. If you want to turn your video on, it helps me see you, and but it's not a requirement. We're also live streaming, so those of us joining from live streaming, we're happy to have you too. Okay. Hi, Bill. Hi, Joanne. How are you? Where are you today?
Heartland, Michigan.
Oh, I'm sorry, where in Michigan?
Heartland,
Ireland. Where is that?
near Brighton.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Okay. So Sushim took the other class. The notes were mailed out, but if you had trouble, getting them, most all the notes are included in this one as well. But I mail out the notes within about half an hour of getting the class. But if you need the notes from that one, Sushim, you can email help@getsetup.io, and they'll be able to get in as well. Okay. Okay. Great. So Wendy, hi. Okay. A few other people joining us. We have Todd from Get Set Up, our support team. If you have any questions, you can email Todd at help@getsetup.io, and he'll be on the call for a while. Hi, Jane. How are you? Hi, Wendy. Good to see you. Wendy, where are you located?
In the San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, okay. Well, you're not too far from me. I'm in Southern California. Relative to people in Michigan that are further away, Jane, where are you located? Go ahead and unmute yourself, Jane.
In Florida,
Oh, great. Okay. What part of Florida?
Broward County.
Okay. Great. All right. Okay. So I think we've got most everybody here. I'm going to go through a few slides, and then we'll talk a little bit about work, living or retiring abroad, and some of the pros. If you have a specific country or location you're interested in, I don't know everywhere, but it helps to understand. If you have any questions about what it's going to cost and finances, I'll show you some different things. But if you want to put something in chat about where you're thinking about maybe going to, that's always welcome as well. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen so I can give you access to a few slides here. The session is being recorded, and so for those of you that are join getsetup.io, you can always request a copy of the recording by sending an email to help@getsetup.io. For those of you that are joining us by live streaming, we encourage you to join as well, and that will be a way for you to participate in the class as well. Okay, a little bit about me. Some of you have had some classes from me before. I recognize a few names and faces. I'm based in Seal Beach, California. I was born in Chicago and came out to California when my dad would travel to visit my grandmother. We'd take Route 66 all the way across every summer and spend the summer in California. And I wanted to stay in California when I could, so I came to college out here. I've worked in the technology industry most of my career. I've owned my own internet service and company, and owned a training company. And I've been teaching for Get Set Up since about early January. And but I've been teaching adults about technology mostly, but other things too. This class kind of started in a little odd way, and that about during the time I was adapting to single life. My wife passed away a while ago, and I started traveling around the world looking at places to go visit. And then I read an article about places you could live abroad. And one of my sons actually lives in Spain and runs a business in Spain, and has been in Europe for about 8 years. And so I thought to myself, gee, maybe there's something to this living abroad that I can check into. So I started to look into it. A couple of friends went with me. Thank you, Joanne. Appreciate that. And it just, it became sort of an interesting thing to do and occupy your time. So I started exploring a lot of places around the world and found a couple I really liked and spent some time there, and other, things about myself and how it helped out too. So I think I mentioned a few of these things already. Live streaming, we're not paid to promote any products or anything like that. I'm going to show you some sites and websites on some things that'll help you out. Okay, so today's agenda is a little more focused on finances and costs, as opposed to helping figure out if living or retiring abroad is the right thing for you. So we'll talk a little bit about banking. We'll talk a little bit about budgeting and costs, what retirement pensions and taxes do, what some work options are too. And so what things you might not take into consideration, what you do. Obviously, where you go and where you want to live abroad is going to affect your cost of living a lot. And I'll show you some websites that'll help out. So I saw Joanne's interested in Dubai. Anybody have any other places they're interested, they're thinking about going to at this point that they've thought about, or is it just kind of new to explore? Jane, did you have a place you were thinking about?
I was thinking about maybe Hungary.
I'm sorry, Hungary?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And Bill, Joanne, how about you? Have you thought about any places you think what might be worth going to or looking at? Oh, okay. Switzerland. Gotcha. That's a good thing. Now, I'm going to teach you a little trick about Zoom that helps me. I put the chat on my other screen on the left, and so sometimes I have to remember to look there to see chat. But if you're at the bottom of your Zoom screen or your Zoom window, there's the microphone, there's the video, and if you scroll over to the right, there's something called reactions. And reactions gives you the ability to raise your hand virtually, or give me a thumbs up, or do a few other things there. So it's kind of like a way to participate. Malta, Portugal. Okay. Okay. Some interesting places around the world. So this will help you figuring out the money side of things a little bit, as that may help you out. So let's talk a little bit about banking. International banking has really become much more prevalent and made banking a lot more convenient. It used to be, it was really difficult to move money around the world. Now we have bank networks with ATM machines. We've got credit cards. We've got transfer services as well. But one of the things that affects finances is this thing called an exchange rate. Okay, an exchange rate is something that is a fee that is charged for by financial companies when they move money from one country's currency into another country's currency. And they charge a fee. It can vary. The airports are the most expensive. You've seen currency exchanges at airports typically because you typically are leaving a country or going to a country. But these days, ATM machines are one of the most convenient ways to get money. But there is one country that uses the US dollar, and that's Ecuador. And so Ecuador is a popular retirement destination for two reasons. One, it's got good climate, and particularly if you get up higher in altitude, the climate's much more moderate, not as humid, but it uses the dollar. So you can walk into the country, or fly in with dollars in your wallet, and there's no currency exchange. You don't have to exchange it into pesos or euros or other things like that. Now, some banks don't charge a fee. Some credit cards don't charge a fee. So one of the things to investigate, even if you were just traveling on vacation, you should look into seeing if your credit card company charges you an exchange fee for currency exchanges, because that can cost you 2-3% in exchanging money all the time that you have to deal with. And so some banks like Schwab, and somebody told me on another call that the Apple credit card doesn't charge currency exchange fees. And so you can pay for a lot of things with credit cards. You can get a lot of ATM cash from ATM machines at banks all over the world. Keep in mind your limit on what it's going to take to get cash out as well, but you can put a lot of things on plastic all over the world these days. And so finding a credit card that doesn't charge that exchange fee will save you a little bit of money. It's really best to use your US bank account. You don't really have to move money into a foreign bank account too often. For bigger expenses, maybe for rent, if you rented a place. But there are services like Zoom, spelled with an X, OOM, that is owned by PayPal. So Zoom, let me get this in bigger, better, brighter color here so you can see it. Zoom is a currency exchange service that's owned by PayPal. And so you link your US bank account to Zoom, and then you use Zoom to send money overseas. And I'll show you their website in just a second. I'm going to move my slides and my web browser side by side so I can do both things at once for you. Okay, but that's one of the things to keep in mind. If you need to get an international bank, a lot of international banks don't like setting up bank accounts for US citizens these days, because they often end up having to meet requirements for things that they may not want to meet. So it sometimes can be a challenge. Okay, so let me bring up Zoom here for a second and show you. And they're a PayPal company. They're really great. I'm going to share my browser window here. I'm just adjusting a few things so I can show you things on my browser and show you the slides as we go through some things here too. Okay. All right, so let me take care of this and do a share, and let's see. Okay, so now you should see the slides on my right and my web browser Zoom. It's a PayPal service. So, Petra says Capital One card. They don't charge a fee. It depends on the type of card you have. I learned, somebody was telling me that if you have a certain type of Capital One card or a certain type of Chase card, sometimes they don't charge currency fees too. So always check. You can use Zoom to send money to anywhere in the world. Okay, so if you're landlord or you want to get cash, or you want to send somebody money to a bank account, you can do that. When you're booking travel and other things like that, most organizations take credit cards, so it's not so big a deal. You can arrange for cash for pickup, and you can have cash delivered directly to a recipient's door. It's a very secure service, very reputable, very reliable. So it's good service to keep in mind for doing those types of things. Any questions about currency exchanges? Okay. Living expenses. We're going to take a look at some videos, some things about living expenses. You've got things typically like housing, food, other things that you might need to take care of, utilities, medical bills. And there's a couple of websites out there. One's called Expatistan, and another one is called Numbeo. I'll put this in chat for you at the same time. Let me get this to everyone. and put that in chat. And another one is Numbeo. These are websites that are basically used for people that want to find out what it's going to cost to live somewhere. They're both pretty comparable. So the Expatistan has a cost of living ranking, and they rank cities all over the world based on their cost of living. And they bring in, so they have a map. Numbeo has a map as well. And as you can probably guess, the places that are in green are less expensive than the places that are in red. So if I go over to something like Northern California here, you're going to find some. Portland is a cost of living index of 177, whereas something maybe in Portugal here, Lisbon is 127. Sure. Okay. Let me take care of one thing here and take care of helping out here. Okay. There we go. Thanks. Okay. So I was just making one of our TA as a co-host so he could help people out in chat if they need help. Okay. So Expatistan's cost of living world map is here. But what I like about these services is they give an index. And the index takes into consideration all of these things: housing, food, other things. So you can see some places are expensive, like San Francisco comes in with an index of 237. If I go down here to another place like Tel Aviv, it's 187. Portland, Hamburg, if I go all the way down towards the cities, towards the bottom here, I can see some things like San Jose, Costa Rica, 99. All right, let's take a look. Why is San Jose, Costa Rica lower in cost? So they use the cologne. We're going to change these. It's not $5,988 in US. Let's change this to dollars, US dollars. How about instead of somebody else's dollars? I have to go all the way down to the bottom here. Okay, we'll go down to the US dollar. And now we can see some prices. Okay. $10 will buy you lunchtime meal, milk, housing. Let's take a look at housing. Monthly rent for a 900 square feet furnished accommodation in an expensive area, $934 a month. Okay. Monthly rent in a normal area. This would be an area you'd feel safe in. You'd be living, comfortably, $471. So most of these are furnished, so furnished accommodations are much easier to find. Internet, $27 a month. Utilities, $43 a month. And, clothing, blue jeans are expensive, so it helps to, get some things in the US. Entertainment, 2 tickets to the movie, $10. Boy, I remember when there was a movie theater nearby me that was a discount theater, sold tickets for $6. So these are what they do is they tell you that these prices are based on abundant. Okay, so they have 116 different people have updated this, and this is a community type of site. Both Numbeo and Expatistan, they just ask people, hey, if you know what something cost and you spent the money there, go ahead and enter it. Now, gym memberships, you can get a gym membership anywhere in the world, okay? And they're going to cost pretty similarly because gym equipment's about the same. Okay, so let's take a look at Numbeo, and I can type in, somebody mentioned Dubai, and I'm going to check Dubai, and it will give me information here in local currency. You got to change the currency. Let me make this a little bigger for you guys. Okay. Let me change the currency to US dollars. Oh, it was right on top. I'm sorry. Okay. They moved it on me. Okay. So what do things cost? Let's take a look at some major expenses like a bottle of water, 44 cents. In Norway, I was at a convenience store and a bottle of water cost me $7. Okay, so Norway is just a really expensive country. Scandinavian tends to be. Transportation, taxis, pretty inexpensive. Utilities, electricity, water, cooling, garbage, about 180 a month. Fitness club, about 75. they ask you to contribute for the data. Here's what rent costs. Okay, rent's not inexpensive in Dubai. One of the reasons why certain countries like Ecuador, Panama, Costa Rica, Portugal, Spain, Southern France come up over and over and over again is that because their cost of living is lower and their climate's amenable. So you can see one of the things, the average monthly net salary is about $3,000 a month. Okay, so when you find a place that has lower average monthly salaries, you typically find cost of living is lower. So I could compare Dubai. I can go back here to the cost of living index, and I can take a city like Lisbon in Portugal and see what happens here. So these are euros. Let me change to dollars. And they will tell you a few things like, okay, a single person's estimated monthly costs are $662 without rent. Lisbon is 46.93%. That's pretty precise. Then less expensive than New York. Okay, and rent is about 68% lower. So you're going to find a lot of things are very affordable. Now, a lot of people don't have cars when they travel overseas, and you can save a lot of money without a car. But let's take a look. The rent, a one bedroom in the city center, about $981. Outside of the city, $753. If I take a look at some place like, say, let's take a look at San Jose, Costa Rica, and see what it looks like there. Okay, these are in Costa Rica currency. Let me get up to US dollars, and we'll compare a few things here. A meal at I've eaten for just a couple of bucks in Thailand and Costa Rica. If you're willing to venture out a little bit and get some food where locals eat, you get a lot more expensive. Let's see, rent in the city center, $592 for a one bedroom, a three bedroom, $927. Probably a two bedroom is somewhere in between. And so you find, look at the average monthly salary is $930. Costa Rica is a pretty affluent Central American country. If you go to someplace like Medellin or Ecuador, you'll find things. And what it does is it pushes all costs down everywhere. And so you find a lot of things are a lot less expensive. So let's see. So this is a budget I found for some people in Ecuador that we're sharing some things on the web. Rent, sorry about that. Let me go back here. About $500 a month. Electricity, gas, water, bus, taxi, phone, internet, other things like that. Pretty inexpensive, for about $1,500 a month is what as a couple. Now, medical insurance might add something to that as well. Because you'll have to get some medical insurance that will cover you while you're overseas. Medicare does not work overseas. So I want to share a video here. Let's see if I can find it where I put it. Let's see if I've got it on my next slide here. These are people, Tangerine Travels. They're kind of a fun couple. They've made some videos on things like cost of living, traveling overseas, and I'm going to share the video here. Let me take a few minutes to get it set up.
The food bunker.
Get rid of ads here and get this set up.
Welcome.
Okay, hold on a second, because while I shift from slide to just a video here, and make sure you can hear it as well. So I'm going to make this full screen, and then I'm going to play the video.
Tangerinis, today we are tackling a topic. It's a lot of T's.
Tangerine Travels
tackling a topic. One of the most common questions we get asked on our channel is, what is the cost of living in Mexico, our cost of living? And before we dive in, we want to give a little disclaimer, if you will. We realize that it's super general to say, what is our cost of living in Mexico? Mexico is a huge country, but we do feel like we have a pretty unique perspective on this topic because we've been to 39 cities across the country over the course of 16 months. Also, if you're not familiar, we are currently living in Puerto Morelos, which is a small beach town in the state of Quintana Roo between Cancun and Playa del Carmen, so a lot of these costs are going to be very specific to this town. Oh, and in case you noticed this snazzy Alaska shirt that I'm wearing, this and other designs are finally ready at tangerinetravels.com, and I hope you're saying finally, because we've been telling you about these t-shirts for, I don't know, a year now, and we got our act together and they are there. tangerinetravels.com.
To start off, we have our rent.
We recently moved into a new place. It is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, and we are paying
$500 US a month.
that includes water and internet. If those were not included in our price, what seems to be an average water bill, at least in this area, is about 130 to 160 pesos, depending on water usage.
Yeah, and for internet, our landlord is paying 500 pesos a month. We've seen internet vary from about 200 on the low end to 500 on the high end. Next is electricity. In all the rentals we've had throughout Mexico, this is the first one where we are the ones responsible for paying the electric, and that's because we haven't had air conditioning until now. And if you don't have air conditioning, your electric bill is probably going to be dirt cheap.
A few things to note on the electricity front. It works a little differently here than it does in the US, at least in my experience. We're only paying every 2 months instead of monthly, is what I'm used to in the US. And also there's tier pricing. So if you hit a certain kilowatt usage, the price per kilowatt goes way up, and then at another tier it goes up even more than that. So it behooves you to conserve electricity and like not blast your air conditioning.
Yeah.
From what we were told in Ajijic, do you want to explain that?
If you reach one of those higher tiers, it's pretty difficult to get back down to the lower tiers. You have to show a low usage for quite a few months in order for them to drop you back down. So you can either literally have a bill that's like $2, or you could have one that's hundreds of dollars depending on your usage. We have not personally got our first electric bill, but after talking to a neighbor and his experience in town, we're estimating an average bill throughout the cold season and hot season being about $75 US a month with air conditioning.
Something else not included in our rent is gas, and the gas is used for hot water, the stove. If we had a washer and dryer, it might be used for that as well. And this last time we filled up with 1,000 pesos for like what I think is an average size tank. And depending on usage, it could last 3 to 6 months. We cook a lot, so I imagine it's probably going to be about 3 months that it'll last. And so that averages out to $17.47 per month. The next section is food, and we've broken this down into a bunch of different categories: groceries, eating out at restaurants, drinking out at restaurants, drinking water, filtered water for at home, and
Costco membership. Starting with the Costco membership, we buy a lot of our groceries there, and it's a little over $2 a month, and it's much cheaper in Mexico than it is in the US.
However, there's no Costco gas, and that's a feature I really liked in the US. Cheap gas at Costco. The next one is drinking water, and that's us going to like OXXO or the grocery store and getting those big garrafones of water refilled with purified water, and that averages out to about $6.71 a month.
The first time you buy those, you have to pay a deposit for the plastic bottle itself, but every time after that, it's going to be much cheaper, and it's just the refill cost.
Something like 30 pesos or so. The next category is groceries, eating out, and drinking aloud. Drinking aloud and drinking out. Those fluctuate so much for us. Some months we're basically cooking all at home. Other months we're going out, and it also depends on the city. So we've tried our best to do some averages here of what we've done across the span of 16 months.
For eating out, we fall typically in between the range of $100 and $500 a month. It's a really wide range, totally depending on how much we cook at home.
And we separated out going out for drinks, and we think that averages around $70 a month. Then moving on to groceries, of course this is another category that could just be all over the place. If we're going to local produce markets, that's only about 100 pesos for a week's worth of produce. Crazy
Dirt
cheap.
cheap.
Whereas if we're going to a store like Chedraui or Costco for more things like, I don't know, milk, Greek yogurt, gluten-free pancake mix, you
We just
decide
bought
to
that.
get, it'll be much higher. The average of both of those two, we'd say, is around $62.88 per month.
Next is our cell phone bill. Before coming to Mexico, we had T-Mobile, and they actually have a really good plan for Mexico. It's probably the best plan you can have for someone visiting. For the two of us, it was $100 a month. But now we switched to Telcel after a few months in Mexico, and that dropped to a little over $31.
Granted, it's not unlimited data anymore, but it's so inexpensive to buy more. We usually get the 300 peso paquete, and that has
2.5 gigabytes of data, but a lot of times they're running promotion where you get 5 gigabytes.
So if we ever need more, we just pay 100 pesos, 200 pesos to get more data. No big deal. Still.
Okay, I just wanted to share a little bit of that with you so you had a better idea of what some costs were for them. And they're a great couple. They've done a lot of work on putting things together for sharing a lot. So we have any questions from anybody about prices or costs or anything like that? Wendy said, I found some videos. The problem with some of these videos is that sometimes they're not realistic, or they're not sincere. I found that Maddie and her her partner, they're pretty honest about what they've done. They left to Arizona. They sold a house they had together, and they've been in Mexico for about 3 years now, doing those types of living there. And so they're pretty honest, and they've got a good reputation for on the internet. Some places just don't have that good a reputation. Okay, so there are some other webs. I mentioned Expatistan and Numbeo, and they'll give you these indexes. Places like Thailand and other places that are out there are really good. And if you have not taken the Is It Right For You class, one of the websites that I go to is International Living, and I'll bring that up for you quickly. It's a site that basically is a good starting point. They're not necessarily the end all and be all for you in terms of what you would want to look at, but they do have a popular magazine, and some of you may have heard about them. It's a good place to start, and they will have top 10 recommendations of countries that they recommend, but they have reports on all kinds of countries. And so I subscribed to them for a couple of years when I first started looking abroad, and they have a lot of articles. So, they're now, Bill and Joanne asked if there are some expat groups. Yes, on Facebook, there are expat groups for almost every place you find expats living. An expat is a citizen from one country that lives in another locale. And so on Facebook, you can typically find expat groups for people that live abroad in any city you want to get to. But yeah, so informing those groups and getting connections like that are helpful. And International Living, they do sell other services and market real estate, things like that. So be aware of that. But they are one of the more popular publications in this. Okay. A budgeting item that a lot of people forget about is visits back to the US. If you are going to live abroad and you do not, you're getting rid of your home in the United States, you have to figure, okay, when you do come back, how often is it going to be? And where are you going to stay, and how are you going to get around? Okay, so if you have your home still in the US and go off and visit other places, you still have an expense for a house here and you have an expense for a home you have overseas. So you have to figure out how you're going to manage that. So keep in mind that, what I tended to do is I tended to explore a place first by going and staying at a hotel, traveling around, getting to know neighborhoods, doing research on talking to realtors. Then I do a longer stay of maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks through an Airbnb. I'd sign up for a language school. I'd start to establish some local connections that way, learn where expat groups hang out, where, what their activities are. And then when I picked the places, a couple of places I wanted to live abroad, I just, would make my long-term arrangements through some of the realtors that I found. And I just know the neighborhoods a little bit already. But think about this. I mean, emergency trips back to the US could be expensive if you have to travel back suddenly. Okay. And there are expat groups in all different countries. Facebook seems to be the place where they all seem to get together. They tend to gravitate by city as opposed to country. So you'll find something for expats in Barcelona, expats in Medellin, Colombia, expats in San Jose, Costa Rica. So the city names seem to be how the groups tend to be organized more than anything else. And they have information and they share things about, what people are doing and activities and, recommendations for people to help you with your visas and other things like that. And it's on Facebook. So take it, do your own due diligence on anything people recommend as well. Okay, so some budgeting worksheets, figure out what you're going to be bringing in. If you make money in the United States, by the way, it will be taxed in the United States. Just because you're living overseas doesn't mean your US income is exempt from federal or state tax. And so those are factors. You typically get your pension, Social Security, investment. Any work you do in the US will be deposited to a US bank account. Then you can transfer it over using the services like Zoom that I mentioned. Your budgets are going to be, use the Expatistan and Numbeo sites to help you out. It depends on, how luxuriously you want to live and where you want to go. Somebody that wants to live abroad in say, Munich, Germany, or Oslo, Norway is going to spend a lot more than somebody in a lower cost country. That's why a lot of where my son lives in Spain, it's kind of a nomad, a virtual workplace for a lot of people, and a lot of people from London live in Spain if they can, because the private schools are much less expensive than they are in the United Kingdom. So there's actually a fairly lively income. Is there a way to make more of your income non-taxable? From a living abroad standpoint, no. From a investment and other standpoint, that's why, your financial advisor is going to be the right person to talk to about finding that. But you'll pay tax on it, no matter what the IRS and going to tax, they're going to tax you, and their state tax as well. Some people that have gone into RV living, because RV people, I don't know if anybody see the movie Nomad Land. Nomad Land is up for an Academy Award, and it's about a financially distressed, type of nomadic lifestyle. But there are people that live fairly, affluent lifestyles in RVs as well. And the RV industry has kind of created this whole ability for people not to have a permanent address. And so there are mail centers that'll handle things, get everything you can electronically as much as possible, get everything on electronic files and put it up in clouds and other things like that, so that you can get to it anywhere in the world, because the internet will work no matter where you are. And some people like to work when they go abroad. And so there's a difference between retirement and what you have to think about when you retire. I mean, I found is, what do you want to do with your time? And I enjoyed teaching. I started doing community classes and adult education classes in 2000, 2007, while I was working full time for a computer company. I started a company up and then sold it, but I was still teaching part time. But eventually, I started teaching full time at community colleges. And for me, it worked out really well because I was able to adjust my time, and COVID kind of brought me back to doing more. I do about 15 hours of classes for Get Set Up and a few other places too. But you can work. There's a lot of jobs. I'm going to show you some unusual ones, okay, as well. But you can also be a digital nomad. I mean, we have people on the Get Set Up staff that are based in Rio de Janeiro, that are based in Australia, that are based in India. So digital nomad. I have a friend that is a digital nomad. He works for a satellite company, and when he's in the U.S., he stays with his son or his brother. But he keeps his car, but he's thinking actually of getting rid of his car because he's thinking really he doesn't go that many places. And if you can live without a car, I mean, Uber and Lyft, they're all over the world. And so, I mean, a car is expensive. So if you can cut out insurance, his insurance bill went up. That's why as soon as anything goes up in price, he decides, I think I'm going to get rid of this because it's costing me too much money, right? And you probably found the little monthly expenses in life tend to grow bigger and bigger for some reason. I don't know why. But you can work in trade, you can work in hostels, you can become a teacher. You can teach English as a foreign language without any knowledge of a foreign language. Now, these TEFL assignments, they require 4 weeks of training. There's a lot of schools that do it. And I don't have anything I can recommend to you for those, but you don't have to be fluent or even speak another language because the classroom is all conducted in English. So I found whenever I traveled somewhere, getting connected with language schools, a really great way to get connected fast with the local community. The language instructors get to know you a little bit. You get to know them. You can find out from them what neighborhoods are like, what it's like to get around town. Get some references for maybe attorneys to help you with a longer visa stay and things like that, and even find opportunities. One of the schools said, "Would you come in and help us in the evening with our English classes for our locals?" And I said, "Sure, I'd be happy to." They got to talk to a native English speaker, which is not all that common for people in other countries to have access to, and so they really appreciate that. So let me show you some of these options here because they're kind of fun. Depending on your sense of adventure, they might work for you and they might not. Okay, so you should see my web browser, and I'll show you one of the things is flex jobs. If you can find a flexible job that lets you work remotely and set it up in the United States before you go overseas, that's a good way to go. Because you're going to get paid based on US wage scales, okay? So flex jobs, and they're going to be a link to this in the notes that's going to come to you. It's one way to find flexible jobs that are working from home. Another website is a site called Workaway. Now, I was actually in my credit union about 5 years ago, and I was talking to the teller about moving overseas and said, "Oh, I've got some friends that are going to work their way across Europe." And I said, "Really? How are they going to do that?" And she told me about a couple of different places that you can go to find work opportunities that are kind of exchanges or nonprofits. So Workaway is one. And you can volunteer for organizations too. And sometimes these things. So what you do is you are a traveler and you find a host. So some of these are maybe not for you, but they're interesting opportunities just to explore. So here's one. Get to know a Sri Lankan family and help in Kandy. I have no idea what that is. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so what are they looking for? We're a family and they're technical professionals. They don't have any pets. They live in the countryside. So they want help. They want, and these people are flexible. I mean, so if you're not, they want you to help with the family meals. They don't want to serve you, but they want language. Well, there's a lot of people around the world that will give you free room and board, and if you just help them learn English, and because there's no maybe not it's sometimes less expensive than going to going to an English school because they can be helpful. So and then you can help. The volunteer may teach my sisters, help in building construction with computers, may teach language, music, or painting, but they really want, an native English teacher. So these are interesting, and you can communicate with them through these websites. Let's take a look at another one. The one that I was showing my daughter-in-law this was a one in Norway where basically you work on a farm, and so it can be physically demanding, but some are better for other people. So there's just thousands of hosts here, sometimes house sitting in British Columbia. There are people I know that do not have to pay rent ever. And they just do house sitting and they move around and they have a set of clients that they do, and they're willing to take care of pets because other people want to go other places. They're one, and they give you the ability. What kind of a exchange you're looking for? NGO stands for non-government organization. That's what typically a nonprofit would be. Or you can be with families or help at a school, participate in local communities, stay at a farm, do some sustainable, environmental work, house sittings, try your hand at sailing. If you enjoy that, I'm not good at sailing, or animal welfare and other types of things. So they have all types of hosts, just kind of interesting to explore. It's called Workaway. And another one that is more of a volunteer and trade. So they have a lot of different, where do you want to volunteer? What do you want to do? So you volunteer and you basically are bartering whatever skills you have. So you'd be surprised what skills you discount, and they may be worth a lot of value, because knowing English and being able to live with a family or live with someone or something like that, being able to help out, backpacking, working in a hostel, they always seem to need help or something like that. So they have a farm project including recycling, painting, and gardening in southern Spain. And there's another one. There's a new one that if you really want to have it, there's one called Remote Year. They actually would work with people that were digital nomads, and they say, we'll arrange all of your accommodations, your remote office space and everything for up to a year. They shut down because of COVID, but they're starting up again, and they do some things like a month in Medellin, but they're more designed for people that are still working as opposed to retirees. This is the one: become a trainee farmhand with us. Okay. If you want to learn how to be a farmhand, right? It's hard. They actually have a dairy farm and they need help. Okay, but they have rooms and available for return. So people in Norway are really friendly. My late wife was Norwegian, like 3 generations removed, but we went to Norway, we drove around the country, and everywhere we went, people were really friendly and hospitable and everything. So that's one type of opportunity. Become a trainee farmhand. Okay, learn how to be a farmhand. Become a helper, other things that you can do for helping out. And there's a fee. Okay, so this is not, Wild West type of thing. These are people that in order to contact and communicate with people, they require a small fee to help get rid of a lot of people that might be, extraneous out there. So there's all kinds of opportunities here. Education, even, in the United States, there's places. So they give you can pick places, you can pick activities. They're just great communities. They've got a good reputation for doing things, and just depends on how much you want to work, to pay for your way abroad. But sometimes, when you might want to have an activity to do, and so you can find getting involved in some things, with local nonprofits or local communities and expats and other things. Let's see, can you rent an camp or an RV? Depends on the country. I mean, they do have RV rentals in Europe. I know when I was in Norway, we ran across a lot of people that had camper rentals that had come up from France or Germany to visit Scandinavia and tour with an RV. In Norway and Sweden, they have a policy where you can camp anywhere as long as you're not within, I think, 500 feet of somebody's residence. The land is available for people to camp on and stay on. So it's kind of an interesting approach. So there are some things that offer you some opportunities to do some things there. So that give you the ability to do this. So one of the things that I don't know if some of you have looked into is medical care. Normally I cover that in some of the other classes, but I'm going to show you something on medical care. Okay, here, so for information. So one site that's good, there are a couple of others. I'm trying to type it in here, Cigna Global. Okay. Cigna Global, Aetna Global, these are how you would get health insurance as an expat. So I'm going to put this in chat so that you can find it later. And what you want to do is you want to basically have your health insurance set up in the US before you get there. Okay, but they do have international health plans. Okay, so they give you for individuals and families. They give you 24 access to medical, multilingual, a global network of hospitals and healthcare providers, access to support. I got a quote from them for what it would cost me to get health insurance in Costa Rica, and I'm 69. It was about $350 a month because your Medicare will not work outside of the US. Now, if you do have another type of health plan, like a Medicare supplement or a Medigap with somebody else, call the number on the back of the card, your ID card, and ask them what they cover when you travel outside of the US, because they'll cover you as a tourist, but they might not cover you as a longer term resident. If you said, I want to spend 6 months traveling around Europe, they might say, well, our insurance only covers you up to 30 days of travel in any country or something like that. So Cigna is one company. You can get supplements if you just need a supplement for a small add-on policy to help you while you travel. There's other companies out there that do that too, and your health insurance provider can usually refer you to them as well. So those are some of the aspects on expenses that will help you out. So any questions about other things? I saw that camper, taxable, it's US money, it's going to be taxed. Some people end up moving to Nevada, or a state where there's no state income tax. If you have a state where it's a high state income tax, and you think you're going to be living abroad for a while, relocating and setting up residence in another state may help you out, depending on your income situation. So let me stop sharing for a second and see if there's anybody that has any questions that they want to bring up before we wrap up. Can you believe it's an hour already? I can't believe it went by fast, Well, anybody have any questions that they want to pose before I wrap up with the closing slides today? Okay. All right. Well, let me give you a little summary here of things we've covered. Now, like I say, this is focused on finances and costs as opposed to just, is it right for you? And it's not always the right thing for everybody. I mean, I have a friend that runs a tour company that he does tours of Central America countries for places for people to consider retiring because they're popular, because they're easy to get to, they're closer by. But he says about half the people that go with him decide it's not for them. But extended stays are becoming really common. I have a I've lived in Barcelona because I have a son there and I have family there. So it's a little different if you have family and friends around. But think about that. Those are issues like you're going to be away from family and friends. How well do you do on your own? Expats overseas really make friends quickly. So it's a really a great way to get connected. I made a friend in Thailand that runs a bed and breakfast out of Martha's Vineyard. He's basically a snowbird, but instead of going to Florida, he just goes to Thailand, and he likes living in Thailand for the winter. So your banking options, U.S. income, check your credit cards, find one that that gives you that doesn't charge you exchange rates. Sign up for PayPal and Zoom. That will help you in terms of if you need to move money. Using your ATM card at a bank is still a great way to go. Set up everything electronically as much as possible before you go. And what Maddie and her partner mentioned was one thing they said. They have a video that they put out just recently on things they wish they had done before they moved to Mexico. They said they wish they had learned the language better. Her parents are Latino, and so but they didn't speak Spanish in her home. And so they didn't start learning. So, there's language tools. We have some language courses on Get Set Up. So learn a language a little bit. That will help you out. And then get rid of stuff. If you're really thinking about moving overseas, you don't need as much of a place in the US. Having a big house with a lot of stuff in it, it's going to sit empty if you're here, if you keep it, or it takes time to get rid of stuff. And I was talking with some friends at lunch, and they were saying, nobody wants our old furniture. You have to give it away these days, right? So people don't want old stuff anymore. So it's frustrating. So there's a great class on virtual travel with Google Earth that's really good. Most of what I do is technology. I kind of got into this living abroad, approach because I started traveling, and one of the community college directors says, "Gee, that sounds like it'd be a great idea for a class." And so I've just kind of carried it on and with Get Set Up as well. If you haven't taken the one, Is It Right for You? We offer that one and this one, kind of alternate them. It's a nice one. There's some other travel, sites out there. My approach is I'd go somewhere, stay in a hotel because it was easy. I'd use the hotel staff to help guide me around the city a little bit and help find it. And I'd have a list from International Living of communities where expats lived. And then I'd go visit them. I'd take a taxi or an Uber over to that community or something like that, and get an idea how to walk around a little bit. I'd go in and visit real estate offices. They're just like here. Realtors are the same all over the world, but they handle rentals a lot more overseas, and you can get short-term rentals. You can get, you don't have to go through Airbnb. You can go through a local realtor if you've got something where at least you're going to be there 30 days. Or if you start with Airbnb, you'll typically find people that are there. And I found a lot of expats were also people that ran tour companies for Americans visiting overseas too. So it was a great way to get connected. They always know somebody. Once you get to know somebody in another country, they know somebody, they know somebody, they know somebody. But depending on the country you go to, get used to, you have to adapt to their culture. So if you're dealing with a Central or Latin American culture or Mediterranean culture, tomorrow, appointments for tomorrow don't always mean they're tomorrow. That's an estimate on when they might get around to it. So you have to be very patient with those types of things. You got to get some class notes. I apologize. Todd reminded me that I forgot to start recording. So I started recording. about 10, 15 minutes into the class, but we do have another recording from a prior class as well. So if you want, you can request one of those also. But you'll get all the class notes and other information, all the links to the websites that I've shown you as well. And we encourage you. Thanks for coming today from Florida and Michigan and other points around the United States. And if you end up traveling overseas, let us know about it at Get Set Up. Send something to help at getsetup.io. And watch A Year in Provence. Yeah. So it's interesting. I actually got on some email list that is offering me real estate in Italy. I don't know how I got on it, but it must have been through one of the travel sites I registered for. But Italy is trying to bring people in as expatriates for a lot of their small cities are losing population. So if you have any questions about booking another class or the Get Set Up website, I'll stay on to help you out with that. If you have, let us know any ideas. I think people are anxious to get out. Once we get COVID. But right now, there are a lot of countries are really struggling. So we're very fortunate in comparison in the United States with our ability to travel. But even in the United States, I was looking at trying to take a trip to the Grand Canyon or to Bryce and Zion National Park. They're booked out to the end of July. So it's people are ready to hit the road. I know. So, but it'll happen soon. It'll be possible. I'm still waiting to get back into Spain so I can visit my granddaughter. I haven't seen her for a year and a half now. So when I can get on that plane and go, I'll be heading over there. Okay. So thanks for coming today. Thank you for some suggestions in chat. And Todd, thank you for helping us with support and reminding me
Thank
to
you for
start.
having me.
Okay. And we'll see you soon at another class. I hope you join me soon in one of my other classes. Okay, folks? Okay. All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you, Bob. It was great.
Thank you. Appreciate the feedback. Thank you.